everyone, Professor Scaly here, and welcome to something I haven't really done that much of before in the past. And that would be playing GTFO with the bots. Yeah, the bots. These guys have been in the game ever since Rundown 6, which released almost a year and a half ago. And I played with them a little bit back then just to get an idea of what they could and couldn't do, and I was helping playtest a little bit, so obviously I need to mess around with them to get feedback. But that was about the extent of it. After Rundown 6 released, I only played with the bots I think once or twice, and that was it. I practically never touched them again for quite a while. It wasn't until Alternate Rundown 2, when I was actually collecting guide footage for those level guides, that I started to play with them again. And the only reason I did that was just because I knew that the first few Alternate Rundown 2 levels could be completed extremely quickly with a team of 4 that knew what they were doing, and I was afraid that if I played with people from my community, I would end up completing the level so quickly I wouldn't have enough proper footage to use for the level guides. So I decided to play with 3 bots, that way I could go at my own pace and practice my skills a little bit, and also get a chance to learn about the bots a little bit more. And then after a few levels, I realized that it was actually sort of enjoyable to play through with 3 bots, and I figured, hey, why don't I try challenging myself? Why don't I try completing an entire rundown with 3 bots? And at first I thought that would be a great idea. And then I realized that not a single cell in my body wanted to do alternate R2E1 with 3 bots. Heck, I don't even want to play that level with 1 bot, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. So I scrapped the idea and just decided to play through the first half of it with bots and then the second half with people who had pretty good skills. And then I thought, what about Alternate Rundown 3? Rundown is fairly short, it's really not all that difficult if you know what you're doing, and I could actually reasonably see myself completing all 7 of the levels without pulling out all my hair due to playing with 3 bots. And I also figured that since Alternate Rundown 3 is only 7 levels long and Alternate Rundown 4 is 12 levels, all of which having at least 1 optional objective, there would probably be a fair amount of downtime between Rundown 3 and 4. And I don't want to just simply upload nothing during that time, so I needed to come up with video ideas. And sure, there's a lot of different things I could do, but I figured that this would probably be the last time I would actually be able to attempt this challenge, as there's no way in heck I would be able to complete all of Alternate Rundown 4, 5, or 6 with 3 bots without using cheese methods, exploits, glitches, or other stuff that would sort of just defeat the purpose of the challenge. So when I was going through collecting this background footage for the level guides, I recorded my own audio and I did proper commentary, as I didn't know how much of it I would actually use, and then I would get to it a little bit later and just edit it all together. Not really going to do the typical highlight lowlight compilation where I just do music and I just do clip after clip after clip, but rather I'm going to narrate my way through each of the levels one by one, while also showing some of the mostly raw uncut footage here and there, just to sort of showcase some of the more interesting moments, as there were quite a few interesting moments from start to finish. But there is about a total of 7 hours worth of footage, so obviously I am not going to be able to show all of it off. But now that you have a good understanding of what this video is, let's get right into it and start off with the first level being Alternate R3A1. Now, since this is the first level of the rundown, I expected it to be incredibly easy and also not really all that eventful. So I wanted to spice things up a bit by handicapping me and the team, which initially I thought about taking something like 4 seafoam launchers or 4 bio trackers, but then realized that I was still using this footage for my level guides, and therefore probably wouldn't be a good idea to take a loadout that's completely different than what I recommended to newer players. So I turned towards my weaponry instead, as that's something I don't touch in the loadout portion of my guides. So I decided to take a Hell Shotgun, as it's a weapon I practically never use in the game, so I'm not very efficient with it, and a Sniper Rifle, because even though it's really good at dealing with giant enemies, it's not so good in levels where 95% of what you fight are smaller, weaker things like strikers and shooters. And of course, me taking this loadout alone wouldn't be enough, so I forced it upon the rest of the team as well. And with the loadout set in stone, it was time to drop down to the level. But I figured that that still wouldn't be quite enough. So I decided that I was going to handicap myself even further by making it so one of the bots, specifically Bishop, would have to carry the neonate from start to finish. That's right, he was never meant to place that thing down unless if I specifically told him to, and I never intended on telling him to put it down until the very end of the level. However, I pretty quickly learned that the bots aren't idiots, and if you do something like wake up a room full of enemies, they'll drop items to, not die. Alright, normally I would drop off the neonate there. I'm out of enemies. Well, too bad for them that I have a knife.
What the dog doing?
And none were the... Oi! Dada. Or Bishop. Sorry, Dada. Didn't mean to yell at you. Bishop, did I tell you you could put that down? I don't care if I'm on the verge of death or if I'm about to... If I am dead on the floor. No dropping that. You're in charge of the baby, mister. You carry that thing with you to the end of time. You don't put that down till I tell you to put it down. You hear me? And after that quick little scolding for Bishop there, I moved on to the alarm door. I knew what I had to do. I set my defenses, made sure all the resources were collected, and I had hoped that this time Bishop would hold on to the neonate throughout the entirety of the alarm and not place it down. But of course, you could probably already guess what occurred. Nice. Easy peasy. How much ammo did they waste? They shot so much time. Wait a second. Bishop? Why is your ammo low again? Keeping my eye on you, Bishop. And you think that he would learn after me giving him another thorough scolding right there. But after another quick incident that literally occurred right after opening up that security door, I decided I would have to give him a little bit more of a firm reminder. That's a warning shot, Bishop. I see you drop that again. I will kill you. Now, originally, I planned on upholding that threat. If Bishop ever dropped that neonate again without my permission, I would have shot him and more than likely killed him. But then it dawned on me. That's not really who I am. I don't like shooting my teammates all that often in this game, and that still applies to the bots, and it probably wouldn't be a good idea for me to get on their bad side as I would need all of their assistance when it came to the more difficult levels. So threatening them and shooting them wasn't something I should probably be doing. So I decided I was going to forgive Bishop and move forward. Honestly, yeah.
I can't believe you've done this.
See, Bishop, that's what happens when you, Oh my gosh, bots, stop wasting ammo. Come here, come here. Bishop, that's what happens. Did you not place a mine? Oh my gosh, you didn't even place a mine. Place a mine, please. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Much appreciated. Alright. Did we learn our lesson, Bishop? Good. Now, I said I was going to forgive him and move forward. If the game itself decided not to forgive him, that's a different topic. So, yeah. Unfortunately, Bishop decided not to walk out of that room, so he ended up getting annihilated by all those enemies, which resulted in us losing HP, as well as other resources, because the other bots weren't all that much better. I shut the door, and yet they decided they wanted to try to shoot through the cracks with inaccurate weapons and waste a good amount of ammunition. And Dada decided he didn't want to place a mine on that door when I told him to, so I had to waste extra seafoam to keep the door shut long enough so he could actually get that mine on the door. So yeah, we lost a good amount of resources right here, but thankfully, it wasn't all that bad. This level was going to still be easy, even with that little issue, although it did make me worry a little bit for some of the later levels in the rundown where incidents like these could actually cost the entire run. But that was a problem for a different day. So I continued going through, grabbed that color key card, grabbed the resources, went back out and opened up that security door, and moved on into the next zone. And I just planned on continuing to stab enemies and being, nice and chill. But then I was very quickly reminded that the bots sometimes like to open fire on enemies, and they don't care if you're standing in between them and the enemy that they're shooting at. I don't even know... Oh my... How I didn't get hit there, I will never understand. All three of them were mag dumping into that dude with the hell shotgun. How did I not get hit? Wow, yeah, that was surprising. I didn't get hit once, and you might think that that was just pure luck and that wasn't going to happen the next time. But I hate to say it to some of you, I don't think I ever once got shot by the bots in all of my journey throughout Rundown 3. I know for a fact a lot of their bullets whizzed really close by my head, but as far as I could notice all the runs, I never once actually got shot by them. Maybe I'm lucky, or maybe it's because I don't shoot the bots on extraction and I don't kill them whenever I can, and therefore they actually like me. So if you're somebody who struggles with the bots shooting you all the time, maybe stop killing them on extraction and they'll give you a little bit more respect. Just an idea. Either way though, we continue forward in the level and there really wasn't much left to it. Just clearing out a few more enemies, collecting some resources, and then I had a single class 4 alarm that I would have to deal with, which I just simply mined and seafoam the doors, and then during the alarm I re-seafoamed the door a little bit to buy my team extra time to finish the scans, which was a really good call. And because of that, I finished every single one of the scans before the enemies broke down the door into my room, and when that door did break down and the mine exploded, almost everything died to it. I think only 2 regular shooters survived, which I very easily dispatched with 2 sniper shots. So yeah, things were going incredibly smoothly. Went into the final zone, grabbed some more resources and resupplied, as I want to make sure I had everything I would need for the run back to extraction, or rather the walk. And then I decided that because Bishop had been doing a pretty good job, I would relieve him of carrying that neonate and I would carry it myself. And with that, I was fully confident and it was time to move into the final portion. There we go. Let's go, team. I am going to hold W. I don't care what appears in front of me. I trust the 3 of you will protect me fully. Okay, that's not a good start when they are shooting like that, but hey, it's fine, it's fine. Like I said, fully confident. They use Hell Shotgun like crazy on the hybrids, and then when it comes to... You okay, Hackett? Are you trying to heal me? I think he's trying to heal me, but he just can't quite reach me. Oh, focus on the enemies, please. Yep. Fully confident. Oh boy. But in all seriousness, I actually wasn't really worried in the slightest, even though the bots were being a bit weird there at the end, and I think one of them, or all of them, spent like 30 shots just to try to kill a single enemy at one point. I knew we were fine. I continued walking back, I just held W, I did not care about the enemies, got to extraction, dropped the neonate, and then I just started spraying seafoam everywhere. The bots dealt with most of the enemies who actually got past the seafoam, and after holding out for a little bit, got the scan to 100%, and we were done with the level. And that was the end of the journey of A1, which, yeah, that was actually pretty eventful, seeing how it was the first level. So now, it's time to move on to the second one. Moving on to R3A2, I decided to take a little bit more of a serious loadout. Taking guns I was unfamiliar with was a funny bit for the first level, but like many jokes, it's usually only funny the first time you hear it. So going into A2, I decided to bring with me a burst cannon, as I knew that there were a lot of giant strikers sleeping in some of these zones, and a fair amount of hybrids due to the blood doors. And boy oh boy does the burst cannon melt through giant enemies. So when I went through that first zone, I blasted my way through. I didn't care about sneaking or trying to stealth kill them. I just said guns crazy and shot down every single one of the giants that came after me. And after they were all dead, I looked around, grabbed resources and the first power cell, and went into the next zone. In there, I dealt with all the other small fry that were sleeping about and plugged the power cell into the generator cluster to lower the fog a bit. And with that, all I had to do was collect the other 3 power cells, each in their own different zone, guarded by a blood door, and of course some enemies sleeping inside the zones as well. And not really a whole lot of eventful stuff happened in this level. The first blood door was incredibly easy to deal with, 1 mine and a shotgun sentry and some bang bang from the guns, and everything was taken care of. And the zone itself was pretty simple. I found the power cell really early on, so I didn't even have to explore most of it. And with that power cell in hand, I went back to the generator cluster, plugged it in, and I moved over to the eastern side. There, I was getting ready to deal with the second blood door, and unfortunately, things did not go quite as smoothly. Okay, good. Oh, is that Scout in the first room? No, I don't think that's quite first room. Hackett, Hackett, move! Oh, well, I just shot a bot. Uh-oh, I've shot a bot. Now they're gonna start shooting me. Gosh, bots, please, I know, I need medical assistance, but you do not want to be running in front of me right now. You know what? You guys seem like eager beavers. I'm just gonna let you handle this. Yeah, so turns out going below 80% HP and having the bots with med packs on them will more often than not cause them to immediately rush towards you and try to heal you, which means they are not shooting at the enemies, and yeah, awkward situation. I'm getting healed way more than I need to, and I can't shoot at the enemies, so they're getting easy hits on us because we're not dealing with them, which results in more healing, and it's a vicious cycle. Thankfully though, I did not die at the second blood door, and I was able to go throughout the rest of the zone, collect some resources to resupply, and again, just like the first one, pretty easy to deal with. The harder part of the zone was just simply trying to leave it, as I was trying to place a mine on a door, that way I was prepared for extraction, and Dada decided he wanted to he wanted to derp out a bit. As you can sort of see in the footage, he's just not placing that mine, and I was a little bit baffled by this because I didn't think they struggled so hard. I think it had something to do with the terrain or whatnot, but eventually he got it, so good on you, Dada. After that though, that was the third out of fourth power cell plugged into the generator cluster, so it was time to head over to the western side, climb down that ladder, and prepare for that blood door. And I figured that hopefully, because everything's coming in a nice one-way funnel up the ladder, this blood door would go by much more smoothly. And then just to double up a little bit, we'll put one right there, I think. That's the right angle? Yes, good enough. And hopefully the bots get out of there before they all blow up.
Triple kill!
Well, that's truly unfortunate. Yep, that one's on me. I should not have placed a mine facing directly towards the blood door, seeing how the bots weren't going to climb up that ladder until I had gotten all the way up it. So I unfortunately killed them and wasted a lot of health, but I had plenty of ammunition, and the mines, even though they killed the bots, did deal with most of the enemies from the blood door, so I didn't have a whole lot I had to deal with afterwards. But once I climbed down and picked them up and got them back on their feet, I went throughout the zone. And I won't lie, a lot of the time in this level during this run was spent going through this zone because I did not know where all the possible power cell spawn locations were, and I actually forgot where the terminal was. And of course, it was in the very last room I checked. So I wandered around for a while dealing with the enemies, both with melee and by shooting, trying to find out where the power cell is to no avail, and finally I was able to make my way towards that terminal, hopped on it, pinged it, and I knew exactly where the power cell was. Which, doing this, I actually learned a neat little trick that I did not know beforehand. If you have a carryable item like a fog turbine or a power cell nearby, you can actually tell the bots to pick it up, even if you have not already picked it up in the first place to put the marker above it. So even though that power cell was down below in the infectious fog, I just simply told the bots to grab it since they can't gain infection, and I didn't even have to worry about it. And with that final power cell in hand, I made my way back to the generator cluster room, plugged it in, did the full team scan, and then ran back to extraction. And when I got to extraction, I had no worries in the world. There weren't a whole lot of enemies coming after me, so I placed down both of the sentries and I just kicked back, literally put my hands behind my head, and just relaxed while I let the bots and the sentries deal with every single one of the enemies. At one point I thought I might have to shoot a little bit, but nope, the bots actually did a pretty good job there right at the end. Once that scan got to 100%, I was done and out of that level. And with the second level of Rundown 3 completed, it was time to move on to the third one. Going into the final A-tier mission for Rundown 3, I was actually a little bit nervous. Sure, it's an A-tier mission, so it's not all that difficult, but it's also a reactor objective, and reactor missions can be pretty challenging if you don't have a solid team. Not only do you have to worry about defending against hordes upon hordes of enemies, but you also have to worry about going into new zones and clearing out enemies, looking around for resources and resupplying everybody, and also hopping around terminals to figure out what your reactor code is, all while you're under a strict time limit where if you don't get back in time, you're going to have to redo the wave you just did, which results in wasting a lot of time and resources. And since I had to play through with 3 bots, I couldn't have them do pretty much any of this. They're not going to really stay behind and deal with any of the few enemies still from the reactor wave while I go up ahead. They're not going to just run throughout the zone and deal with all the enemies or grab resources and resupply. And there's a lot of stuff I have to micromanage while I'm playing through the level. And adding in the bots' antics to be a little bit derpy from time to time didn't really help out. But starting off, it wasn't all too bad. Defending against the reactor waves was fairly simple. I had a pretty good strategy on how to funnel all the enemies down that one nice little catwalk, so having some sentries there and the bots shooting at it made it a lot easier. I was worried about the bots consuming a little bit too much ammunition due to their inaccuracy, but when you have that many enemies really close to each other, the inaccuracy isn't really all that big of an issue. So I defended against the first few waves, went out, got the reactor codes, but upon getting the third reactor code, I came across something that surprised me a little bit. Wait. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? What? No, Dada, don't you dare pick that up. Okay, I'm gonna have to be quick. I have to distribute this and I need to get back ASAP.
Yoink!
You... I can't even check that box. I need to go. Okay, so the reason I'm saying, are you serious? You could see there's that scout ping back there. In all the runs I've done and seen of this level, I have never, ever once seen a scout spawn back there. Yeah, I had seen maybe 10 or so different runs of this level by that point, and never once did I see a scout in that zone, which really surprised me since there almost always was one in the original. I thought they just full on removed it. I guess it's just a percentage chance, and according to people, I have gotten incredibly lucky to not see a scout up until this point. So it threw me off a little bit, and it did distract me from actually focusing on the level and trying to make sure I did everything I needed to do, but it wasn't that much of an obstacle. I changed up my defense location for the 4th area since I did not want to risk a reactor wave spawning from behind me, so hiding out here made it so that they can only come at me from the front, and I defended against that wave. It took a little while for all the enemies to finally get to me though, unfortunately, so I had to spend a little bit of my reactor code searching time actually finishing off the wave, but I did have enough time to go into the zone, grab some of the resources, deal with the scout and all the other enemies, and get my code and get out. I cut it a little bit close, but I was still in a pretty good position. Then I changed my defense spot once again as I did not want enemies to come from behind me, so I held out to the north for the 5th wave and pretty easily dealt with that one too. I had a little bit less tool refill than I initially wanted as I planned on actually pulling this alarm right at the end of the wave since I was going to have the same setup for the reactor wave and the alarm door, but I had just enough tool refill to make it so that both the reactor wave and the alarm went over pretty smoothly. And after I finished the alarm and dealt with all the leftover enemies, packed up the sentries and went to the next zone. And I got lucky as I was able to find tool refill and ammunition really early on, so I was able to spend a lot of my extra time to sneak through, not having to blast my way through the enemies, and actually get that 5th code and get out. I was still a little bit lower on ammunition and tool refill compared to what I wanted to be at, but I knew I had enough to finish off this level as long as I wasn't missing a ton of my shots. So I initiated the 6th and final wave, but then a new issue that arose in A1 actually came back to bite me here. And I'm gonna shut this door. So now here at the ending, again, as far as I'm concerned, enemies can never spawn to the north of me. The only thing that could spawn up north would be the wave or some of the giants that spawn in at the very end of this wave. Because those seem to just spawn from every single possible direction from you.
Wait a minute!
Oh shoot, they went onto the other side of it? Oh my gosh, get back out here. I shut that door, that way I wouldn't get snuck up on by the giants. But it looks like the bots were like, oh, let's just run in there real quick. Okay, let me shut this, and this time don't go in there. Okay, you know what? I guess no matter what, they're just going to go in there, so I'm just going to have to leave that open and keep an eye out behind me so the giants don't just obliterate my face. Yep, that was not fun. I really wanted to shut that door behind me so there was no chance of giants sneaking up from behind, as I knew that that final wave of a ton of giants could spawn from any direction. But because I couldn't shut the door without risking the bots going out there, and I really didn't want to try to fiddle with that with a reactor wave right there in my face, I said screw it. Thankfully though, I was able to hear the giants coming from behind, so I was able to outmaneuver them a little bit, and I was able to deal with them fairly quickly. And once that timer started getting closer to 0, I made my way back out into the reactor room, got to that terminal, and as soon as I saw what the code is, I put it in immediately and started running. Because there was no reason for me to kill anything. I knew this was a really quick extraction scan and more enemies were going to be spawning in soon because of the extraction alarm, so I just said bye-bye to everything and ran for it. Unfortunately, Bishop did go down on the way to extraction, and I don't even think the other bots caught up to me, but I made it all the way there, and I got out of that level before a single enemy even had the chance to show up. So overall, wasn't too bad. A little bit dicey here and there at some moments in the level, not being able to get all the resources I wanted, but I was able to complete A3 with minimal difficulty. And with the A tier missions completed, it was time to finally move on to the B tier ones, obviously starting off with B1. And the beginning of this level was pretty slow. First zone is filled with a lot of big open rooms and not a whole lot of enemies to occupy the space. Sure, sometimes I came across a decent group of enemies in close proximity, but whenever that happened, the knife just went stabby stabby. Wow, that's a fair amount of enemies in here. Well, good thing I have a knife. I love the knife. And in those situations where I couldn't stab due to the enemies being a bit tankier, guns went shooty shooty. I'm just gonna go choke mod crazy on these guys.
Bing! Bong!
Yep, no problem. And because of that, the first few zones were pretty easy to get through. I kept making my way through, dealing with the enemies and collecting resources, and eventually I made it to the first alarm door, which really wasn't all that difficult. Shut the door, place a mine on it, and place down both of my sentries, and it was pretty good. Scans were a little bit trolly during this alarm, but overall, no complications whatsoever. Very minimal damage was taken. And after that alarm was done, I went into the next zone, cleared out some more enemies, including the scout, looked around for a few more resources, and I started setting up my defenses. Now, a lot of people typically struggle with this part of the level since you have 3 alarm doors in fairly close proximity, but because I had already collected guide information for this level, I knew how to just funnel enemies for every single one of the alarms and make them incredibly easy to deal with. And also, I had 2 sentries with me that I've been putting all the tool refill into, so I knew I had enough tool refill and ammunition to last for all 3 of these alarms. The most difficult part really about setting up for the alarms was just simply getting the bots to not phase through doors. Just need to get the bots to actually come in here and not run back out when I shut the door.
Bye.
Like that. Gosh darn it. I hate the fact that if you walk near a door, they're basically programmed to just run right back out it. Bishop?
Bye, have a great time.
Hack. Oh, God, hack it. It would be really nice if the bots didn't phase through them, or at least let them phase through them when they're coming towards you without you being 10 miles away from them. I don't know, it's just, it's a bit annoying trying to deal with bots and doors. This is why I don't like doing error alarm levels with them, because this actually becomes a really big issue. But thankfully, I was not in the middle of an error alarm. I got to take all the time in the world, and I got the alarm door set up how I wanted. I did them one after another, and when I finished them, I was pretty low on tool refill and looking somewhat okay on ammunition, but I didn't have to worry about it, as I had opened up 3 new zones, 2 of which had a fair amount of resources, and all I have to do is go through and stab a few enemies here and there. No big deal, right? Pretty easy. Well, there's a reason why you don't always say things out loud. That's really the big thing I need to be careful about, is just not waking up scouts. If I wake up a room full of enemies, that's not a big deal.
Oh, not good.
Now, speaking of waking up a room full of enemies, okay, we're good. Doesn't matter. Got hit by a single shooter. I'll take that. Aside from that little hiccup of irony trying to kick me in the butt, clearing out the side zones wasn't all that challenging. It was pretty easy, grabbed more resources. I did have to shoot a little bit here and there because of the giants, but that wasn't really too big of a deal. And with the zone cleared out, it was time to deal with the first uplink terminal. This uplink only had 4 codes to it, and I had a lot of doors I could shut and mine, and I had 2 sentries to give me some extra firepower, so I didn't really have to worry all that much. I'm actually pretty quick at dealing with uplink terminals, so even a 4-code uplink doesn't take all that long to finish. And to make things even easier for me, even the enemies decided to help me out a little bit. Alright bots, I'm gonna trust you. Oh, that was convenient. Thank you, enemy. That was really kind of him, just walking right into my line of fire when I wasn't even really trying to aim at him in the first place. I got the first uplink done, then I went over to the opposite zone, and I just cleared out the enemies again, grabbed more resources, and then set up my defenses. Which this one has a little bit more difficult of a setup since I couldn't manipulate the enemy spawns by going beyond the room divider. I even almost forgot to place down my sentries at the beginning of it, so I had to set them up last second in not the most optimal positions, but it was the same thing as before. 3 bots defending me and 2 sentries shooting at the enemies and a few mine doors to blow up a lot of the initial ones, so I completed the second uplink no problem. And with it finished, I just hightailed it back to extraction. I didn't see any reason to clear out all of these enemies. I could just simply run for it and hold out on extraction with the bots and the sentries. Or at least that's what I thought I would do, but the bots were a bit weird. I think they stayed behind to deal with a lot of the enemies that are still right there in their faces, and because I shut a door on them, they took a really long time to actually get to me on extraction. They hovered in that uplink terminal zone for a while, and then eventually they made their way to me, but they took a very roundabout way to do so. They didn't phase through the world like I thought they would, but in the long run, this sort of helped me out, because a lot of the enemies that were spawning in because of that uplink or the extraction alarm were just focusing on the bots and trying to chase them down as they were running through at Mach 10 speed. So yeah, the bots didn't go down and I practically had nothing to shoot on extraction. So after waiting a little bit, I got the scan up to 100% and I was done with R3B1. With a little over half the rundown completed, it was finally time to drop into R3B2, the level that first introduced players to the Birther. A pretty nostalgic one, but also one that didn't really give me a whole lot of concern. The only things in this level that made me slightly worried would be the infectious fog-filled zones, which, no big deal, I have got a fog turbine and fog repellers and disaffected packs and 3 bots who are completely unaffected by it, And then the other concern would just simply be the birther, which wasn't even that big of a deal because a single C-foam grenade could make that fight into an absolute joke. And even if I did not find a C-foam grenade, I brought weapons to purposely counter her. A burst cannon, which could very easily kill her and just do a lot of damage to the tumors, and an SMG, which would just mow through all those baby strikers she spawned in, assuming I actually start shooting at the location that they're physically appearing at before they start running all throughout the room. So I went into this level with a lot of confidence. But literally within the very first zone, the bots started to do some things which made my confidence levels drop by a pretty fair amount. Oh, hello. You die. Get him, bots. Get him. Come on. I thought you guys were accurate. It should not be taking you this many shots to kill a shooter. Thank you. That took a little while. And if that poor show of marksmanship wasn't enough to concern you, then maybe this is. Alright. And then, Dada, we'll have you carry this. No, oh no, don't tell me. Oh my gosh, Dada. Not that one. Yeah, I don't know what possessed the bots to make them think I was trying to tell them to pick up the neonate on the other side of the room and not the fog turbine literally right at our feet. But that was an issue, and this made me realize that I probably couldn't tell them to pick up the fog turbine in the middle of the alarm. Or rather, I didn't want to risk it, so I picked it up myself, and while we were dealing with the class of the alarm, I just focused on carrying the fog turbine and dealing with the scans while the bots focused on the enemies, which went by pretty smoothly. Sentries dealt with a lot of them for us, and the bots had pretty good accuracy despite that showcase from earlier, so they dealt with a lot of them for me. After the alarm was finished, I made my way into the side zone to look around for that power cell, which didn't take me all that long to find. There were also some resources, but I really didn't care about them and just wanted to get out of that zone quickly, as one fatal mistake, and I'm going to wake up a lot of giant strikers and giant shooters. And yes, I have a burst cannon, so I could pretty easily deal with them, but I didn't want to waste the time and resources on that. So I went in, found a few of the resources while looking for the power cell, and once I had it, I made my way out of the zone. Back into the main hub room, plugged into the generator, and that unlocked the northern security door. And at this point, I just told the bots to hold on to the fog turbine and the neonate, as I didn't want to carry anything so I could stealth kill all the enemies in the next zone. But upon going into that zone, I very quickly realized another issue with the bots, or at least specifically an issue when you have a lot of enemies nearby and one of them is carrying a fog turbine. Oh, I don't even care at this point. Stuff happens, stuff happens.
Hi, how are you?
Bishop, oh my gosh, this is... I feel like this is just my journey of learning how annoying, but also helpful the bots can actually be. Because the whole issue of he's carrying the fog turbine for me, but he won't move if the enemies are glowing at all, and then there's a ton of them in that like area right there. It's just, okay. And he just won't follow me. Man, I don't know. I feel like just playing through not even all of R3 yet, but just some of these levels, I have a newfound respect for people who play this game with even 2 or 3 bots all the time, and like this is just the normal for them. Because this is insane. Yeah, that game of red light, green light was incredibly annoying because I had to just deal with those enemies while going into the infectious fog a little bit, because if even a single enemy in proximity was glowing, those bots would not move, which meant that fog turbine was not coming with me. But thankfully, I didn't have to worry about that for the rest of the zone, as most of the other enemies were pretty isolated from each other, so it's really easy for me to just walk up on them, stab them, and not have to worry about the bots not keeping up with me. So I continued to make my way through the zone, deal with the enemies, grabbing resources, looking around for the power cell, which I found pretty easily, and I also kept an eye out for a C-foam grenade, as there was a good chance one would spawn inside the zone, and thankfully, RNGesus was on my side. I found one and brought it with me, so I knew that the birther fight was going to be extremely easy to deal with. So with everything in hand, I plugged that power cell into the next generator to unlock the second door, set my defenses for the alarm, just simply shut the doors and mine them, and place a few sentries facing towards them, and I got that show on the road. Really easy to deal with this alarm, didn't have to do a whole lot of shooting for the most part. I think I actually took more damage from the spitters in the room than I even did the enemies from the alarm, which is a little bit ironic. But after I finished the alarm, I packed up the sentries and went into the next zone. And then there was the birther, majestic creature sitting right in the middle of the room. But before dealing with her, I wanted to get rid of all the other strikers and shooters in the area, so I didn't have to worry about them sneaking up and trying to attack me while I'm shooting at the birther. So I quickly went throughout the room, dealt with every single one of the enemies, and once they were all dead, it was time to kill that birther. And with a C-foam grenade, this should have gone incredibly smoothly, right? Alright, easy peasy birther to kill. Assuming my C-foam grenade doesn't just phase through her. Good. Wow. Seriously? Huh. Well, I guess I was doing that by myself and I was a bad shot there, so makes sense. Come on, birther, come back here. Come here. You know what? Screw you. I'm just gonna stab you. I don't even care. Come here. Bring me back your tumor. Okay, maybe I should start shooting again. Come here. Yes, scream, scream, scream. Stand in place. Thank you. Wrong! Yeah, as you can see, that was a lot more scuffed than it should have been. I guess it's because I forgot that the bots won't shoot at the birther while she's C-foamed because I think she's still technically considered an asleep enemy. And I wasn't really good about actually managing my shots there, so she broke free and started running around. Thankfully though, I didn't lose a lot of resources in trying to kill her, and I was able to finish her off before she had the chance to birth in even more baby strikers. And with her dead, all that was left was to head to that western side zone and go out there to look for the third and final power cell I needed, which the only concerning thing inside that zone was the large amount of spitters, which kept on hitting me over and over again, and this singular scout, which could waste a lot of resources if I woke it up. But of course, I've got a burst cannon with me, so, you know. Hello, Scout. Goodbye, Scout. But after I explored a little bit more throughout the zone, I was able to get the power cell as well as all the resources I wanted, so I went back out to the main area, plugged that power cell into the generator, and that unlocked the third and final security door I would have to go through. So all that was left to do was just set up some defenses for the upcoming alarm, which just consisted of shutting a bunch of doors and mining them and placing down my sentries, and with that done, I got to work on the scans. Scans were actually really nice to me during this alarm, so I was able to complete them really quickly, and not a whole lot of enemies even managed to make it into the room and get beyond the sentries. So not many resources were spent during this alarm, and once I finished it, I just packed everything up, went over to the security door, placed a mine on it to prepare for the blood door portion, and opened it up, and yeah, typical blood door stuff. Mine blew up most of the enemies, I just had to shoot and kill the last few enemies that survived, namely the hybrids, and with everything dead, it was time to walk into the zone and just resupply for the ending bit. Once I was good to go, all I had to do was plug that neonate into the depressurizer to open it up, and then I would just have to walk all the way back to the beginning of the level with it. And I decided that instead of relying on the bots to carry it, I would just simply carry it myself, as I would have to go through infectious fog and enemies would be coming after me, so having the bots shoot at them who are not hindered by the fog would be better than me attempting to shoot at them when I barely can see anything right there in front of my face. So with everything good to go, picked up the neonate and started making my way out. And when I made my way back to the fog turbine, something interesting happened. Dada, we'll just have you carry that. Now he's prioritizing shooting them. Fair enough.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Could you grab this, please? Oh my gosh. Please? Bishop? Oh my gosh, you're joking. Okay, whatever. Don't care. Kill these enemies. I'm just gonna go. Yep, I don't know exactly why the bots decided to not pick up the fog turbine or why they thought they had picked it up when they clearly hadn't. My only assumption is that it has something to do with the fact that I told them to pick up the fog turbine while they were shooting at enemies and reloading, which might have bugged them out a bit, but it was no big deal. I just simply had to walk through the infectious fog without the fog turbine, and the bots did a good job of protecting me nonetheless. Got back to the beginning of the level with relatively no problems at all. Scan took a little while to complete, but not many enemies came after me in the meantime, so I sat there, got the scan to 100%, and that was the end of R3B2. And that's where I'm gonna call it for today's video. Yep, that's right, I'm splitting this journey up into two separate parts, as this video has been going on long enough already, and we still have a whole lot more footage to show you. Despite there only being 2 levels left to cover, C1 and D1, there's still about 4 hours of raw footage I have to edit my way through. As some of you could already probably guess, I did not first attempt C1 and D1 like I did every other level up to this point. So a lot more footage to show, and I unfortunately just do not have the time to edit it right now. Originally, I planned on getting this video out maybe on the 26th or the 27th, and then I was going to work on part 2 and get that out sometime early May, as I did not expect Alternate Rundown 4 to drop sometime until maybe mid to late May. But as some of you may have already noticed due to that announcement earlier today, Alternate Rundown 4 is releasing on April 27th. So I barely even have time to finish this video and get it out to all of you. So yeah, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I'm unfortunately going to have to postpone part 2 for a little while, as I want to focus on the level completions and level guides for Rundown 4 first, as those are much higher priority to me. So I am going to try to work on part 2 a little bit in the background while I'm going through some of those Rundown 4 videos. That way I could try to get it out hopefully within the next few weeks. But I can't promise anything, as I have no clue what my schedule is going to look like, as a lot of important stuff is happening for me around this time of the year, so I can't dedicate quite as much time on editing like I have been the past few months. So yeah, it's completely up in the air. I wish I could have gone part 2 out before Alternate Rundown 4, but that's just physically not possible for me at this point. So I'm going to get this one out to all of you, and then I'm going to focus on the R4 videos as quickly as I can. Those might be delayed a little bit as well, as I might not be able to actually record Alternate Rundown 4 the day that it releases, or even the day afterwards. So it might be a little bit before you see that A1 level completion, but my goal is to get the Rundown 4 videos done as quickly as I can, get part 2 out at some point during that process, and then hopefully I'll manage to get all the Alternate Rundown 4 videos out before Alternate Rundown 5 releases. Which at this point I'm a little bit uncertain about, because they got Alternate Rundown 4 out a lot faster than I thought they would, which means Rundown 5 might also release before I expected it to. So yeah, yippee for me. Problems of a content creator. Only I would complain about 10 Chambers releasing content, quote, too quickly. Either way though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. I do hope you enjoyed it. This is something a little bit different compared to what I've done before in the past, so I hope it came out well. Tried a little bit of a different editing style with it, so let me know what you thought down in the comments. That might influence how I edit part 2, because if some of you really like it, I'll try to do something similar, or maybe if it was a bit of a miss, I might try something a bit different for part 2 when I do get around to it. But if you did enjoy the video, like I said, let me know down in the comments, like the video itself, and maybe even consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. It really does help me out, and I greatly appreciate it. And I'll let all of you go. I'll see you all in the next video, which will more than likely be the A1 level completion, which will hopefully be out in just a few days after this one releases. Until then, stay safe everybody, and I hope you enjoy Alternate Rundown 4. Good luck in completing all those levels.